I felt like I was having an insane experience where
Wait, start over because it just started recording.
oh, no worries.
Okay.
Okay, so last night I had an insane experience that cannot be directly discernible because at the center of the experience that made up the core of this experience was a split into plurality where the origin of the split could not be made. And so the center by which the experience was being enacted was within this unknowable state of indiscernibility within the plurality of its own space. And then I just started having thought hallucinations and conceptual hallucinations and sense sort of sensations that existed on the surfaces of the perceptions of my body.
Mm.
And it was whew, it was like insane. And so I'm very interested in that kind of stuff now.
Yeah, so give me a little context. Where were you? Were you sleeping? Were you awake? What
Oh,
were
I
the
was
surroundings?
so I was awake in my room, and I was just listening. I was meditating, as I often do, and I was trying to enhance my sense of mindfulness. And I realized I couldn't get out of this dyad that I have within my own experience, which is between the conceptual intelligence, which I hold dear, and the kind of emotive or emotional, however you want to put it, intelligence that was kind of just vibrating infinitely in this soup of what I was experiencing. And
Mm.
so I would be able to calm my emotions down and see them clearly in all their dimensions like a kaleidoscope, but that at the same time the conceptual would be dancing against it, and I wasn't able to discern a permanent gap between the two. And so I just had that kind of revelatory experience of like, ah, yes, whoa, my mind is like, my mind has its own soul separate from the capital S soul that we're told exists. And that was kind of my moment of like, oh my gosh, I've never, I don't think I've met I don't think I've ever heard of this kind of experience being had before. And so all night I was going through that, and then I was thinking of you as well because you also have experiences. And I was like, huh, I wonder like what's the criteria for this? What actually happened to me?
Yeah. Well, there's no answer to that except from within you. It feels like you you broke through um, the your your normal range or spectrum
Yeah.
of understanding, and that's something that in what I do and what I have learned myself is to, now that you're aware of this other state, um, to develop a dialogue with it, so that
Yeah.
when you are meditating again, um, you simply, it's better not to overly define it, but to just acknowledge. And this is your emotional self, your emotional intelligence. You're saying, I'm here, and I recognize that something happened, and I noticed that it was different, and I really want to understand that more. And so you're you're inviting a dialogue with this other aspect or piece of yourself that has popped in, this perspective, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because what I've learned over the arc of my experiences is that in the beginning, and I know you're not saying this, but in the beginning for me, it was other. What's that? Other, right?
Right.
And I don't hear that from you. I hear you, kind of owning this as like another view or aspect of yourself, which is great. So
Yeah.
in I think years ago or decades ago, most experiencers were not in a space that you are, where you're always working with a certain level of awareness of these aspects of yourself. So if something comes in, if something came in for me decades ago, it would be other. It would be, what is this? That is visiting me, that is contacting me, right? So
Right.
it's how it would manifest to my psyche and to many other contactees. So we can bypass all of that with you, where you just simply recognize, well, this is interesting. This is nice. Tell me more about what you felt, not your rationale of what it is, or using the
Right.
intellect to tell me. Tell me what you felt.
Okay. Mm. The closest thing I can get to describing how I felt is, I guess, describing what I saw. So I I started seeing, like, it was a video, since I was meditating to it, my eyes were open because I can meditate with my eyes open. And I was looking at the video and I was getting all these after images. I thought they were after images at first, but then I started realizing that I was in the video. But not just that, I was in the world of the video, but I was also in my room. Like, I felt like I was getting two different feeds.
Mhm.
One was my eyes kind of subconsciously looking at the screen while I was meditating, but then I felt like I had another set of eyes in the exact same location. And I was in a different world, but I was in the exact place that my room was. So I was like in a different plane. Like, I
Mhm.
actually felt this. I didn't even have to think about it. That's what was being that's what my emotions were telling me where I was through their silent communication to me. And it just kept getting more and more vast in terms of magnitude and ambiguity. And I felt like I could just keep going. And I already knew that this existed. It didn't feel it felt new because I never seen and I never knew I could go there before, but it wasn't new in the sense that, like how you said, it was more of an ownership as opposed to an other. And
Mhm.
I felt like the range of my capacity was unraveling infinitely. And I was kind of like gracefully at a distance within myself, but also being myself, just looking at it, kind of feeling like an angel. And I was like, wow,
Mhm.
everything's eternal, isn't it? And then I just kind of was like, but it was just so, it was so insane because I still remember it today. I still remember it clear as day because it made me think that um, people are so even when people are talking on a vast level, they're still reiterating something that was previous to it.
Yes.
Like, they're explaining it's you can actually build a ladder, but in this case it was like, no, this is just I this is some kind of, because there's two ways of using the term genius. One is like a property that you have, like genius, and then the other one is kind of like a nexus, like something that is just reverberating onto you, and you feel like you have that quality, but it's not your own. Genius is sort of like this phantom kind of orbiting around the crown chakra. That's kind of what I felt, and I was like, oh, why does that's so important? Why don't people have that crown? Why? It's always something here. It's like, oh, I'm here and I'm a person, but there's things way more vast in me, etc., etc. There's never this sense where I'm like this astral self, and then my astral self proves that I'm never in one plane at the same time. I'm in this constant quantum superposition. I've never heard that from other people. And I'm like, no, that's really important. It really, there is a quantum superposition that makes everything illegitimate and untenable in relation to what you can accomplish, I guess. But I'm ranting.
So would you say it was well, two questions.
Mhm.
Were you in your body?
It's tough.
Did you
Cause
have awareness of your form? Did you feel yourself in your body at the same time?
no, but I think that's only because this might sound a little weird, but even as we're talking, I don't, and I have so many bundles of sensations, but none of them ever cling on to a real body. It's always kind of like I'm clinging on to a random form of gravity, and sometimes it might be in my chest. But if I meditate on it, like if I have a sensation in my chest and I meditate on it, and then I zone in on the chest, I realize, oh, it's not my chest. It's like maybe some molecular activity here, but it's actually like up here, and my perception of my body, since I'm in my body, is dispersed, and so I never feel like I'm really here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's and this felt like that, this experience, but it was far worse. It was just I was like an infinite substance, like oozing out, but I was still myself. But I wasn't in the body, I wasn't Nick. I was just this infinite potential of realizability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's very whew, yeah.
That's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah, that's why I was so excited to tell you, because I was just I'm a very calm person. Like I'll get sensations like this a lot, but I'm I always reduce it to something, because my main focus is always, okay, how far can I make this ambiguous? How far can I stretch this concept? How intrinsic can I make this feeling feel? I'm always stretching things to the infinite degree. So when something small happens, like let's say, oh, I read this book and it gave me an idea that I never thought of before, it'll immediately be reduced to, oh, well, there are 16 species of ideas and they all exist within this membrane. And then it just becomes more and more convoluted, second by second, word by word. And so I'm used to convoluting things because that's how I see things already. So it takes a lot to move myself. Like I'm not impressed by myself, but this experience was enough in terms of like range. It was pushing me without my consent to the range that I maybe should be at. And I was kind of like, oh my God, wow, I'm like so fucking lazy. Like I was like, wow, I have so much, like I just always push my intellect to the side and I just say, oh, well, just add infinity squared to every single thing that pops up and you'll get back to it later. But then this experience was like, no. Let's get to it now. Stop creating a ledger and pushing it to the side, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So not full ownership of it.
No, definitely not full ownership of it. It wasn't subjective, but it certainly wasn't other. I
Mhm.
I think, and I've had a difficult time, not to sidetrack, but since I think it's relevant, maybe you can help me here. I've always had a difficult time understanding what a capital O other would be. Like I understand what it is and when people talk about it, but to me, I feel like my mind is such a strange place that if I ever stumbled upon a real or true other, I would be I would be in a really bad place. Like I would be in this infinite paralysis in the sense that when something enters or when something messages me, if it were to message me as an other, I would immediately, like a parasite, ooze through the message and go right back up through the smiting of the other and try to infect whatever that other was. Like I'm like a digital virus. Like so if like God forbid like something like a god or another being try to communicate directly or beam something into me, I feel like immediately when I felt it, I would immediately like parasitically dig my teeth like unconsciously into that message and to just kind of weave myself up back into where it came from. And so that's why I have a difficult time understanding the other, because my mind is this really overwhelming machine.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. That's good. Everything that you're sharing and describing is good for me to listen to. I find myself wondering, what is your relationship with your body?
You really want to know? Um, it's very weird relationship. It's kind of I'm gonna be honest with you. It's 3/4 of the time it's completely forgetting that it even exists.
Mhm.
And then the other half is when I actually feel something with my body and I feel the reality of it and I just kind of, hit it or try to like do something with it. I I can't I'm immediately like, "Oh, now I have to see my body as a body mind," for lack of a better term. Like I can't just I feel like most people, because they're sane, can whatever that means, they can go back into the everyday of the body. They can have natural issues. They can have a sense of authenticity from their own ego or but me, there's no personification I can go back to. It's always been um infinite complexity. There was never a Nick that all of a sudden stumbled upon complexity. There was complexity that was given the name Nick, and then now I had to deal with the repercussions of that. And then I started calling myself I, which is even worse. And so I think I was always a form of intelligence before I was an entity.
Mhm.
And that's why I constantly get caught up in these. I have really bad relationship with my body. I barely eat. I barely drink anything. It's not because of anything like depression or forgetfulness. It's more just like, oh, this old thing? Who cares? That's just an object of my perception. It doesn't really exist. All I'm experiencing is sense data. Oh, if my hand opens up and bleeds, oh, who knows? That's just that's just a dimension of a perspective of what you're telling yourself. And there's no such thing as blood, really. It's that kind of toxic but also positive in some sense relationship to the body.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, at this point, I don't have a lot of time left in this segment of our connection, but it would be, I would recommend that you have, begin a dialogue with your body. This is the body, if you've, read or listened to what I talk about, the body is really, it's representative of the mother consciousness, and the anchoring and the grounding for all of who you are. And
Right.
it's not a disposable um, aspect of yourself. It is an equal partner in your integration.
Right.
So if these new aspects start arriving or showing up, it's going to need to be grounded. And that's what gives you the grounded perspective, the container for all of this to come together and to be integrated. You're going to be so much more powerful and clear and effective in what you want to manifest and create and be here if this is welcomed into the process.
Yes.
And it
And
doesn't,
that's always been my problem. Yeah.
yeah, and what I want to say is, it doesn't need, we don't need to look at it as, oh, this is a big problem, or it's going to take me a long time, or I've never been that way, so blah. It, done, over, that's in the past. This is right now, and this is our access point for giving this genius, these many more dimensions of yourself that are, again, if it starts to arrive and show up in these ways, it's it could fry you. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I think you know that. I think you know that if it's all just in the mental, or I don't know if you use the word astral
Yeah.
to
Astral.
describe,
Definitely.
if this is what needs to be here and present now, and the body is what is here and present, feelings, sensation. Um, it's all it is including this physical body in your consciousness, because you are human. You came here to be human. It's not something that you're just going to, it's getting in the way. It's
Right.
actually needing to be invited in to the experience of your wholeness, where if this body, this instrument of yours that you were born into, if it is valued and welcomed into the equation, then things can accelerate very rapidly with your opening and your consciousness and the integration. More of you can land here. It has to have some place to go.
Yeah. I totally agree. Like that's always been, and this is the difficulty. Maybe you can help me here as well, because that was really helpful. I feel like I'm always, I want to call it the divine masculine, but it's a very particular kind where it's like Oh yeah, I feel it. It's like this kind of masculine will where it's kind of like you can choose to be the infinite potential of nothingness, because if you're nothing, you can be anything.
Mhm.
And so you never integrate, you never form a body, you never have a form at all.
Right.
Or, and I feel like that's highly masculine, but then the feminine, the divine mother, correct me if I'm wrong, or the divine feminine, I guess, in my understanding, would be it's it's the grace of that, where grace sort of, at least in my understanding, bestows complexity with essence. So
Mm.
it's not simply, ooh, put this here, put this there.
Mhm.
Now there's a synergy. Now there's some purpose, some meaning. There's some gravity, some calling between things to integrate
Mhm.
and for life to begin.
Mhm.
And that to me, I've always, even from very little, I've always um like I feel like, and maybe this is over exaggeration, but immediately when I felt like that's where I came from, like that divine mother, immediately the divine masculine, like right when I was born, or when I had that realization, the divine masculine was like, what are you doing? It's kind of like the
Mhm.
essence of nothingness. Like there's a contradiction, there's sort of a contradiction. It's like, at least in my head, where it's like, all right, if the divine feminine gives essence to complexity, but complexity has its own essence out without essence, then it has to, where's the yin yang? Where how does one incorporate into the other? What am I doing? And so I think I've been dealing with that for, sorry if that was confusing.
Excuse me. No, no, it's a getting to know you. You know, it is it is a dance. You know, it's like, from my perspective, in you know, all of this training my whole life about, um, you know, feeling the mother, getting to know the mother in my body, and the inspirations and the grace and the beauty and the sensations of all of that, the, you know, the ecstasy of this form and this synergy of soul in form, um, has been my life in understanding and adapting to it. And so I'm reaching, um, not reaching, but I'm more receptive now to I'm more conscious of my dance with the divine masculine, and, you know, pure inspiration, and, um, allowing that synergy to happen to where I can receive the inspiration, feel it, be filled with the inspiration, and then allow the construction project to begin. You know, so
Right.
it's not, um, basically in both cases, what you described and what I'm describing, it's a longing to meet again, and um, to strengthen this relationship, to harmonize, with this relationship, and, um, learn and remember how to be whole again. That's really the bottom line of it. And again, I just want to jump back to how important it is that we honor this vessel that we're in. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here if this weren't important.
Right.
Um, And a lot of the data that I have received about this is that in actuality, so many of us, in whatever form it comes in, religion or philosophy or even Gnosticism is flipped on this in some ways, which confuses the hell out of me. That
Yeah.
that you're, the body's bad and earth is bad and we just need to get the hell out of here. It's like, what? That's not Gnosticism. To me, Gnosticism is fully being here, because when we're
Yes.
fully here, we are fully in our power in the way that we were designed. This needs to be healed.
Yes.
This is a rift. This is a hijacking. This is an error. Do you know what I mean? And I don't
Yeah.
want to go too far into story about it. I just like to stay in the essence of it.
Yeah.
But there's a wound here, a very, very deep wound of separation. And so if we continue to say, the hell with the body, that's it. We don't, it's a meat suit and all these, derogatory terms. Um, no, this is where the healing takes place. Then
Yes.
once we reintegrate this and we go, boom, oh, now I know how I was originally designed to be.
Right. Yeah.
Then, you can go off and do whatever you want in any other realm or dimension. But the reason why, I'm informed and feel and know that we are here is to heal this rift. And the more of us that do this, the more of us that show up for this call, this mission to reinfuse the as the Maya say, the heart of heaven and the heart of earth, Father Spirit, and Father Creator, Mother Creator, and bring that back into our original design, and then explode from there
Right. Well,
into that wholeness.
I I have such, man, this, my brain exploded. um I think the reason this wound occurs is because the body, and this is because I'm very deep into Gnosticism. I think this is what they've meant. Or some Gnostic texts, they talk about, like, yeah, Lucifer created this world, the earthly realm, and no, 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 yeah, Lucifer created the earthly realm, and God created the metaphysical realm. And then sometimes they switch it. They say, oh no, um, God was the creator of this existence, and Lucifer was trying to warn us that it's a parlor trick, that there is a real existence, but God, instead of giving you pure existence, just kind of actualized a very tiny fragment of what he thought should exist in order to prove a certain point. And so the snake in the garden is supposed to be like a metaphor for, hey, don't believe the parlor trick, bucko. Like, and it's interesting, but it's the point I'm bringing this up is because I think um, the argument religiously, theologically, between who's doing the parlor trick, God or Lucifer, is a perfect metaphor for the uh, uh, not reaching the feminine, not reaching the masculine, and having this wound of separation where the feminine can. We might disagree here. I think the feminine and the masculine, because they're part of a unified whole, even though they're separate, they can never truly be separate. And so the fact that it's like a metaphysical contradiction, they're separate, but the one can never be non-one, that kind of deepness of it,
Mm.
means that whenever you're fully in your body, you always feel like you could be more. And whenever you feel like you're in your mind, you feel like your mind could be your body. And that's because the masculine and the feminine are still together, but then they're cut in this weird slant where you can't understand the one as two infinities because it has to be one eternity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's
I
how.
hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a full understanding, you know, standing under a full embodiment of this that informs us and fills us in with the rest of the, I don't know what other word for understanding it. We just know
Yeah.
what our true nature is, what our whole nature is, and then we begin to operate. Once this refuses, we begin. That's an interesting refuse.
Yeah, like, because you know, right? Like you already, in order to exist in some deep sense, you have to exist as a particular artifact of the knowledge that allowed you that you were designed for. That's a better way of putting it.
Right. Uh-huh.
But then because existence is infinite and there's also infinite complexity and infinite possibility, it's not enough to it's not enough to say, oh well, these things are actual and these or these things are real, these things are bodily and these things are mental. No, it's impossible to create a pure dualism because everything has a reason why it was designed and why it was there and the way that it's there, but also all the designs are relative to the grand design of eternity. That's the issue. Like
Mm-hmm.
eternity always allows the design to be the designer if the design knows why it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that's that. But that's why it gets complicated. Like who, like kind of like the chicken or the egg problem, or uh, but yeah, that's what makes it complicated for me.
To me, it's more like a synchronization or a resonance issue.
Ah,
If some aspects of ourselves are not resonant with us or out of sync with the whole, you know, almost like all of it goes together in perfect harmony.
yes,
It's a misunderstanding from our perspective, you know, misunderstanding the totality of who we are and the potential, the whole, you know, universal potential of who we are and how we were designed to be. So it gets back to what we were talking about the last time we talked. Like it's all about perception. And so if we're out of sync, we'll find all kinds of ways to, you know, describe that and philosophize about that, and it means this and it means that. Everything always just kind of boils back down to, you know, what knowledge have you created to work with up to this point? How are you being informed directly about what is versus
yes,
what you're circling within and trying to make sense of this um, disjointed or incoherent state, right?
yes,
And so we have a tendency as human beings to just think, well, you know, I'm really smart. Here's what I think, you know, and here's my opinion, and you know, and we can come up with all of these opinions from all of these different fragmented views about what reality is, and that's all fascinating and interesting. But until we have that refusion and we align and we're in sync and we're in tune with our original state and divine source or whatever you want to call it, creator, um, we're just spitting in the wind, you know, really.
yeah,
We're just from each of our perspectives, we're going, well, here's what I think, and here's, you know, well, here's my experience. And all of that is wonderful. You know, currently that's not what's happening in our outer world with, you know, opinions and viewpoints.
Yeah.
because there's a lot of unconscious wounding, and so everyone's erupting with all this wounding that we have, that we haven't been aware that we are that wounded. So it's collectively erupting now. And, when this mess is all over, we might be able to sift through it all and go, wow, that was really painful and that was awful, but I'm seeing and feeling and perceiving more of my humanity. I'm feeling more of my connection to my brothers and sisters. I'm feeling my connection to the earth. And, so whatever um, eruptions, need to take place to purge all of that, um, that's necessary. Even if we consider ourselves intellectuals and, well, that's just a bunch of messy stuff, right?
Right.
That's still who we are. We're connected to all of that. So we can't separate ourselves out and say, well, this is my world and that has nothing to do with me. It all has to do with you. It all has, everything happening with everyone is an aspect, or, different, um, fragment or piece of the crystal, you know, in this whole experience. So I forgot where we were going before with that.
Well, we're talking about how it's a resonance issue,
Yes, it's
and
it's musical. It's to
yes,
me it's music, and that's what came when I connected this morning. It was all about this attunement and why I was given the emotional awareness practice that I was 15 years, 16 years ago now, and why I practice that every Sunday. I practice it on a daily basis too. It's just kind of ingrained in me now. But it's a way to be uh, aware of, the my keyboard isn't hooked up right now, but at least to be heard. But it's like these. It was I was seeing, watching, feeling. The movie that happens when I connect, and um, it's like pressing these chords, and we get accustomed to we think that the incoherent or discordant sounds, we've adapted to that. We've reduced ourselves to, oh, that's life, this
yeah,
sound, and that we don't have a whole lot of exposure to harmony. And so we just adapt to it, and okay, we get smaller and smaller, and we agree to that discordant sound. And um, when the body and when the heart uh, is introduced to love again, this is a body centered experience, love. And that would be another question I'd ask you, is what is love?
oh,
Um,
that's so good. I
yeah,
remember. So
yeah. Um, then we can start to bring, invite that mother and divine feminine consciousness, and start to integrate her back into. This is an issue for men and women. This is not a gender based issue. We all have denied the mother in our consciousness. So we're
absolutely,
all in one way, shape, or form reharmonizing with her, so that the vessel is ready, or the bride is ready for uh, the Father, Spirit,
yes.
universal. Yeah.
That's wow. Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. That was wow. That was so well articulated. Like
I feel like I'm stumbling, because I don't.
really,
Yeah, yeah. It's because, as you know, I don't come from reading books. and talk
Right.
and using that language. I come from, okay, here's what it feels like. Here's my own progress with my own relationship with this presence and what I've learned from it directly. So
Yes.
it I I know that for some people it can be off-putting because it's like, well, what's your authority? Where do you get your
Right.
authority from, right? Because I can't claim a PhD. I can't claim that I'm, a preacher or minister or priestess or any kind of uh, authority that we've all learned to look to. Like, well, or did somebody from the East point at me and say, she's a da, and then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's like, I
Yeah.
don't have anybody giving me that authority from this realm,
Right.
but I feel my authority. I know these things because they've happened over time and I've integrated it. So when I
Yeah.
speak like this and I speak with authority, it's because um, I'm integrating the authority back into my being, which is what demonstrators do. It's like we don't need teachers now, we need demonstrators of how is this done? How are we actually doing this, not reading about it or externalizing it constantly and getting in these feedback loops with what exists, right?
Right.
And so this information and this data can come directly into us and inform us. But that's the reason why the body and being in the body and having this conscious relationship with the body is important in your movement forward, especially if you're intending to have these experiences, and they will come, but it it needs to be grounded in the body in order to make sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because the body helps with that, it helps to ground, like I said, and it helps to um, uh, it naturally knows how to interpret and interact with the field.
Yeah.
It is an instrument for that.
And see, that's what I like the most about what you said, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misreading you, you're not, and I because I actually I'm that guy that listens to a lot of sages and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, that's philosophical taboo, but that's a different story. But but it sounds like you're not even basically saying that the body is the only unit of actualization. You're just saying the body is this center for this integrative permanence that can speak its own voice to everything else. But if I'm not incorrect, but because but most people like I shouldn't even bring up his name in relation to you, because I don't think I have a convoluted relationship with this guy. It's always positive, but most people don't like him for some reason. Deepak Chopra. Uh, he has he says a lot of points that always arc back to a center where things can just sprout outward towards everything and also not be limited to its own actualization.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I feel like you're saying, whereas other people would sort of say, oh no, man, the center is the all. That's where I mean, I have no problems with calling stuff like the one, the source, the all, but like most the sages that I listen to, they're in this weird tangle where, do you mean the all conceptually, or do you mean the all as this, how you said, as this authority? Because even if you mean it as this authority, what's giving you that authority, and I think what's also giving you your authority, which is why people, I don't think, can criticize you in this domain, is it's the authority of your own sovereignty. It's not an authority bestowed or anything. It's
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 And I think that that's crucial for people to understand that there's authority to every sovereignty, and that is the center of integration and growth, and of the realization of the source. But then at the same time, uh, um, that doesn't mean that now you have a flat metaphysics where everything is discernible based on that experience. And that's why I like about what you were saying, because to go back, this is the final point, because before I forget, you said it was like misunderstanding that makes this resonance issue more prevalent. And I was gonna say, whenever we think something is awry, like even if we just think about anything, we consider that thought separate, and that's the immediate dilemma. We forget that everything that is occupying this space, this field, is us. And the only thing that is other is the edge where the self hasn't revealed itself, and so there's an other speaking on that edge, and then maybe depending on how the self reacts, it continues to grow towards that other, or tries to integrate that other in its membrane, for lack of a better term. Am I
Yeah.
accurate?
No, I understand what you're saying, but as you were talking, what I'm seeing is that it's this, again, back to, we're involved in a restoration project. So we're human. That's actual. We are here. We have these bodies. We have consciousness and awareness, and we have bodies. And it feels to me like we have this opportunity to bring all of these pieces of ourselves. So it's like pulling all of this back into this center, and then that becomes connected to the center of all. So this
Yes.
center becomes the center of all. And then we explode out into a new Big Bang, essentially.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to. I wonder if you agree with this. The only thing I was emphasizing in addition to that, and this might be my philosophical bent here, and me like siphoning my favorite philosopher's personality. It makes me want to like sniff and tug the shirt like he does because of his anxiety. But even those, if we consider those two things that you just described as capital E events, they are they are just part of the grand, even that Big Bang is happening somewhere, and there could be infinite Big Bangs in other human centers that lead to a center of the all. So there could be, if we, I would go this far as well, there could be some animals where they have this center, and in their own sense they reach the center of the all in different ways. And so to me, my philosophical bent wants to say there are infinite alls leading to the one all, but there's also the true all, the true one, the absolute,
The absolute.
that encapsulates all situations, all omniverses, all locales and stuff. But like how I said with the sages, it's like the sages are obsessed with the one all, as far as I could tell, which is really good. I mean, yeah. But then, and then the philosophers are obsessed with technicality, which I think is good too, where it's like,
Mhm.
oh well, no, a one all can never be a one all, because what's the one of one? The one of one always has to be many, but in that many there's the singularity. And so the philosopher constantly unleashes all the rich dimensions that the sage kind of already understands, but as a more high def resolution, so they're not really getting every single pixel. They're
Mhm.
just getting the
Yeah.
bright colors. And so yeah, I just
Hmm.
wanted to add that.
Yeah. So all the different ways to view, you know. Oh, my phone's ringing. Sorry.
That's okay. Probably the Mexican food.
Yeah. Let me message him.
Gotcha.
Let me pause this for a second.
Mhm.
My mouse, come back to life. Okay.